Welcome to Start Writing. I'm Joe Bendowski. Today we have an interview with Dave Chesson. He is the creator of KDP Rocket, and he runs the site Kindlepreneur, and he even has his own podcast about book marketing. And he does a fantastic job on all of those. Those of you who have been listening for a while, you know that I put the links in the email to find some of his stuff, like his software that lets you improve the appearance of your blurbs. I've linked to his training courses before, and he just has a lot of great stuff. So we're going to talk to him today about blurbs and the difference between fiction and nonfiction on those, and how to write them to get a good conversion, and some of the techniques you want to do, and the places you really want to focus. It is a really short and tight interview, which is kind of how he approaches just about everything he does, which is part of what makes him so great to follow. As far as this week in critiques, I came across this line, and it said 5 minutes to find what I was looking for and get out before being detected. And I read it and I was like, that just feels really wordy. And part of what is making it wordy is there are several idioms in there or ideas that take multiple words to express it. Like find what I was looking for is big. And so I changed that to find it, because we don't need the clarification of the distinction, right? And then it says, and get out before being detected. And I would change that to just get out. Now, I will make the statement that this is actually the opening line of a book. And as an opening line, I would keep undetected. So 5 minutes to find it and get out undetected is how I would have rewritten that as the first line. Anywhere else in the text, I would have dropped the undetected, because I think the context of the situation would have made that abundantly clear. So I'll give you that first line again. 5 minutes to find what I was looking for and get out before being detected. And I shorten that to 5 minutes to find it and get out. And a lot of that is just addressing the idioms and condensing them in some of the ideas there. But yeah, so I'd read that line this week and I was like, it was just really wordy. It's kind of a throwback to our wasted words. I felt like it could have been tighter. And so that's my adjustment to it. And with that said, here is the interview with Dave Chesson. So, all right. I guess one of the things, like, I love your show. I think you've only got 4 or 5 episodes out already, but it's very tight. I think one of the great things you do is you have that context before, and then you have like an interview with 1 or 2 authors about it specifically.
Yep. Yeah. I like to use the authors as kind of a case study to give practicality to the strategy we just learned. Strategy is great, but if you don't see how the strategy was implemented, then you really can't turn around and do it yourself.
Yeah, that sounds great. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was the ROI, because you've done episodes on using Kindle and keywords, and I took your class and I recommend it to everyone. But one of the things I've been kind of looking at recently was using the blurb on conversion. And I wonder about your own experience in that, like getting your conversion rate after you get the clicks from the ads. Where do you go from there?
Well, that's the biggest part about it. So we're talking about Amazon Marketing Services, right? AMS?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So one of the things I love most about AMS is, for the first time ever, we authors have the ability to easily see where the problem lies with our book. Okay. Let me explain that a little bit. So when you set up an AMS advertisement, all right, Amazon is showing your book, its cover and its title, to their hungry buyer's market. All right. They're putting it in front of them. So the age-old problem that most of us book marketers have, which is, I can't seem to get the right people to see my book. Well, Amazon solved that for you. For a price, of course. And so therefore, Amazon says, okay, you tell me what words that we should show it for, and you do. And your AMS dashboard will say, hey, guess what? Amazon showed your book like 3,000 times. And if none of those 3,000 people clicked on your book, it either means that your book cover sucks, or it's not connecting with the market. That's probably the better way to say it. Or your book title isn't right, or the little sales blurb that you have there isn't stopping them in their tracks and saying, hey, I should click on this. Now, if you are getting clicks, but people aren't buying, then what it means is that they were interested. You had the right keywords. They were there. Your book cover made them say, this might be the book I'm looking for. They clicked it, But then while on your sales page, they decided, nah, maybe not, or maybe not now, and they left. Now, the only true thing that would stop somebody at that point is that your book description isn't good enough. Okay? So they got there. You know that the title and the book cover work, and you know that the reviews are good enough because, hey, by the way, they show that as well in the results. But sadly, your book description just didn't close the deal. So for the first time now, we can look at the analytics on AMS, and we can finally say to ourselves where our problem lies. Is it the book cover? Is it the title? Or is it the book description?
Well, yeah, I think you have a great point there. And if you're getting them to the page itself, then it's not the title or the cover because they've seen those. It's and as you mentioned, the reviews are there, and so it's definitely your book description. So in your own writing, what are some of the techniques you're using? I know, and I've linked this to my audience before, you created software so that we can bold and enlarge certain lettering and stuff that I've used on my own books. But what about writing the blurb itself? What are some of the techniques you use that help you to make your blurb convert really well?
Well, you got to split it between nonfiction and fiction because they're very different, right? But so let's go ahead and start with fiction. Well, no, tell you what, let's talk about both. There's one thing that's really, really important for both. It's that first sentence, okay? I recommend that 80% of your time be spent on writing and perfecting that first sentence, and then 20% of your time be spent on the rest of it. The reason being is that first sentence is the hook. That will be the deciding factor as to whether or not the person decides to read the rest of your review or click the back button and go look for some other book. So that one sentence, you can maybe fit in two, but that little part right at the top there needs to be awesome. All right. You really need that to be like, oh, I got to read on. And this is important not just for that, but also do remember that people can't see the rest of your book description. Your first sentence or two has to convince them that they need to click that little button below it that says show more. So in truth, probably 90% of people that show up on your book sales page will only read that first sentence. So I recommend that you really, really take your time. You look into it, you test it, you play around with it, and ultimately, if you can create something that draws them in, they might just click the buy button without even reading on. But I assure you, if that sentence sucks, they will not click the show more and read the rest of it. So with that in mind, let's kind of talk about fiction and nonfiction. With fiction, it's got to, the thing about it is that we go to Amazon to buy a book because we want to be entertained. That's what fiction is. It's entertainment. I'm not in dire need to get knowledge about wizards or anything. What I want to do is read a story about wizards that entertains me. Okay? So we need a first sentence or two that immediately sets up the plot, but drives us to this whole oh my goodness, I need to know more. That sounds so cool. One thing that really helps people is if you understand what words people are searching for, when they're looking for their prime book. If somebody is into, if they're typing in some word like, second chance romance, billionaire. Okay. And you believe that your book truly represents that, then you better affirm in that first sentence or two that this is a great second chance romance billionaire book. The other thing too on fiction is that you need to make sure that you're not writing a book report. Okay. We don't need, nor do we want details. I don't want to find out about the backstory of any character, except for maybe the main character, the one who's about to go on the hero's journey or what have you. I want to kind of see the importance of the story, but not know what the story is. And I see a lot of authors think that, the best book description is one that actually tells them what goes on. I'm like, no. A great book description should be vague, but really powerful and drive the senses. I'm a big sci-fi military fan, and quite frankly, if that book description doesn't feel like it's an epic story of giant proportions and humanity's survival is on the line, okay, not going to be the book for me. So but if you're really going deep into that and you're using phrases like, the last bastion of humanity makes its stand. Will it, survive tomorrow or be captured and destroyed by the evil Zerg or something like that? That's what makes a great fiction blurb.
So I wonder, off the top of your head, can you tell me about a book that you bought where you saw the blurb, that first line, and said, yes, I want that?
Well, it's funny. One thing I highly recommend to any author out there is to go to some of the biggest books out there and read theirs and see what you like. Look at your competitors. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It doesn't have to be, I'd recommend not a direct competitor. So if I'm writing in sci-fi military, I may want to go to space opera and read up on what they're doing. Because you'll start to see that the successful ones have a certain structure. You'll be able to actually see a couple of phrases or big questions or things like that you can kind of use in your own. I'm not saying copy, but there is a wonderful book that's called Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. And there's a reason for that. So don't reinvent the wheel and look at what they're doing. Now, originally, Harry Potter had a phenomenal one. And sadly, they changed it. They keep changing it. I think that the one that I saw was the best. But, I'm going to have to pull it off of memory. But it was something to the lines of Harry Potter was an ordinary boy that lived under the
stairs.
With a miserable Dursley. But all of that changed when an owl dropped a letter letting him know that he was magical.
Huh.
It starts off that, hey, unassuming, sad, poor boy in a bit, bad situation. So we know who this character is, but then it drops a bomb, right? It totally, says that he's magical. And I think their words were infinitely better than the ones that I just said, but that was kind of the structure of it. The other thing too, if you look at Twilight, in that one, it starts off where she's just talking about, how she's this girl and she finds, this boy. And ultimately, the bomb that she drops is, and that maybe she'll change him from being a vampire. Now you have to remember that book description for Twilight was before vampires and romance was a big thing. So that was, huge. Oh man. So you really want to kind of drive that whole thing where you're introducing the character, but you're really dropping the momentous importance of the story in just a couple of words, right there. It's wait, what? Vampire? Seriously? Wait, what? Magical? What? I got to read on, what's going on here.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts? I know a lot of the research I did on blurbs, they recommended you have a tagline or a catchphrase or something. What are your thoughts on that? Maybe skip it and just start with the first line that's a little bigger, like Harry Potter?
I say that, it's very important to really develop that hook. But where I like to have kind of a catch line or a tagline is at the end. Because what a lot of people forget is that you should have a kind of call to action at the end, right? With the call to action, in nonfiction, it's basically hey, get this book now. Okay. Well, that doesn't work in fiction as much. But with fiction, I would say something that truly sums it up in one powerful statement. I was able to rework the book description for a famous sci-fi book called Battlefield Earth. And the funny thing about this story was that Battlefield Earth was they were doing AMS ads, and again, they were having problems. They called me in as a consultant, and I looked at it, and I immediately saw, like we talked about, that, hey, they were getting lots of clicks, but no sales. So I went to their book description, and it was just a book report. It talked about characters I didn't care. It talked about sub-characters. I'm like, why are you even bringing this up? It was a detailed book report. Now, to somebody who's read Battlefield Earth, it'd be wonderful to read, but as somebody who hasn't, which is who we're writing these things for, it would have just been too much detail. I would have moved on. So in that one, I reconstructed it, and at the end, my last statement was, "For the fate of humanity lies on Battlefield Earth."
Huh. That's a good line. That's a good one.
Well, and the most important part was that I finally brought in why the title is what it is. But more importantly, though, if you were to read or look at Battlefield Earth, the whole time you would think is, oh, it's just a battle on Earth. But the true nature of the story is that actually it's like the whole galaxy is waiting to find out what happens on Earth. Because if we win, the evil race that has like enslaved everybody is gone. So we needed to immediately leave the person with like the fate of everybody. Everything lies on just this one story that you're about to partake in. And what happened for them was they not only doubled their sales from the book description and converted better in their ads, but they even loved that little blurb at the top that they now use it for their marketing. So if you ever see any ads for Battlefield Earth, it now says at the top, of course, it's got the title Battlefield Earth, but right at the top it says, "For the fate of the galaxy lies on," and then Battlefield Earth title. So yeah, if you can develop something like that, that's like, I just call it dropping bombs here. You just want to drop that bomb. Boom. You're going to have much happier and motivated customers that will immediately turn over and click the buy button. So that's what we want. We want impulse buying.
Yes. So talk to me about nonfiction and the difference there.
Now, nonfiction, the thing is, and again, like we started with fiction, it's about what possesses a buyer to go to Amazon and buy a book, right? In fiction, it's about entertainment. But in nonfiction, it's about a pain point. It's about there's something we want to learn, know, fix, cure, stop, etc. Okay? And so you go to Amazon and you may type in how to lose weight. You may type in, War of 1812. Because you want to learn about that. You may type in how to use this program for my job. There are all these ways that we go about it. Now, what's super important is that when you're doing sales copy for people with pain points, it's amazingly important that you use their words, okay? So if, say for example, like, oh man, I got this lower back pain and super sharp and it feels like my spine is grinding. Let me tell you. If that book description, if that's the words that I describe my pain, and your book description says, do you feel like you've got a grinding sensation on your bones and your back? Like a sharp needle is sticking into your, spinal cord with every step? Then fix it. And you can fix it right now. This book will do, you see, I used your own words, right? Like, this has got to be the book for me. It is using exactly how I describe it. Or am I gonna, if I described it that way, but I read a book description, it's like, fix your back pain in less than 3 days, yada yada. Okay, that's kind of cool, but maybe that's a different back pain. Maybe that's upper back pain. Maybe that's, like not a chronic, but an acute, or vice versa. So you can see is that if you know what people are typing in and how they describe what they're doing, and you can use their own words, you're going to drive them to say, this must be the book for me because it uses the way I describe things. Another thing, too, about nonfiction is that it's very important that you don't speak in problems, but you speak in benefits, okay? So in this case, you could say, cure your back. I mean, sure, that's what it does, right? This book will help you to cure your back. But really, we want to talk about the benefit. What do I get out of curing my back pain? The freedom of movement, the ability to go to your kids' games without having to take pills, this and that. These are the things that I really want. So to kind of recap on what we talked about, using the words of the customer will drive them better inside the book description. But more importantly, always speak in benefits. Let them know of what are the good things they get out of this book.
That's great. So I got one final question for you here. Like on your website, you've got a lot of resources for writers, but I don't see any of the tools for analyzing your KMS data. So I was wondering if there's anything you use or recommend, or are you just like an Excel guy?
With Amazon Marketing Services?
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly, right now as it goes, Amazon's dashboard just sucks. I mean, we're going to put it plainly. I mean, it absolutely sucks. And it's sad because they have such amazing programmers. It would probably take them 2 hours to fix it and make it legit. There are a couple of companies that have come out with their own little version, but I haven't liked the way that they do it. And I also don't like the way that they're handling the information. So I won't even say their name because I don't recommend that. But in the future, though, that's one thing that I'll be trying to look towards is that right now, as it stands, you've got to you got to go into AMS every day, basically, and download your Excel sheet and then copy and paste and compare them. So I'm going to try to, in a couple of months, I hope to have a tool out that will actually be able to do that, but it will do a lot more. It will not only report all your book sales on every market, so, Amazon, Kobo, iTunes, Draft the Digital, Smashwords, CreateSpace, all of that will be on one place, so you can go in there and see it. But then it will also make sure to go in and track all of the AMS ads and be able to tell you what's going on, and even give you recommendations based off of what it sees.
Oh, I'm excited. Yeah, because it's frustrating every day. Be like, I got to download this, copy, paste, compare the data. It's super frustrating. So I'm excited to see that come out. What's
funny is you didn't know that was happening, because I haven't actually announced that out publicly. So this will be one of the first.
So yeah,
and that program is called Book Fido. I'm jokingly saying fetch Fido fetch, right? Because it goes and fetches your data. Such a nerd.
Thanks for listening. As always, we would love it if you would head over to iTunes and leave us a review and help other people find the show. If you know other writers, let them know about us and what you've been getting out of it and some of the good ideas we've shared with you. I assume there's some if you're still listening. We would love to hear about your opinions on the marketing episodes and the grammar episodes, and see if that's something you want to continue or maybe take a different approach there. Just so, there's a writer in my group named Lon Hazard, and he is getting ready to launch his first book. And he's asked that I meet with him and talk him through the steps and look at where he's at, point out things he needs to adjust and next steps. And so what we've done is we've been recording these, and we're going to start releasing them on YouTube. So if you go to the site, Joseph-Bendosky, there'll be links to those videos, or if you just find the Joseph Bendosky, I think it's J Bendosky YouTube page, you can find videos. And this week, as I talked to Lon, we looked at his author page setup. We talked about his email drip campaign and building ARCs and specifically building his Twitter and social media audiences, and then how to connect with those audiences to create reviews and ARC followers with his book. So those are some of the things we go over. We go over a lot of stuff in the video, but if those are some of the stages you're at, then you might want to check out the video. And in it, we do screen shares. So I show you exactly what I'm doing on the screen as I show him different things, and he even shows his screen as we talk about different things about what he's doing and developing and where to go next. So if you want to check that out, those are available. And as always, thanks for listening.